Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Welcome to a very special holiday episode of What's Michelle Sewing? You've caught me at a very funny time as I was just looking over some of my holiday fabric here. This is Gingerbread and Holly by Connecting Threads. I got it on sale. And I was saying to myself, sure would be nice to put this to good use before the holidays arrive. Perhaps you too also have a holiday fat quarter bundle or some other festive fabric lying around that you'd like to use too. Come with me. Let's take a look at something and get some inspiration, shall we? Now would you look at that? A pattern made up of Nordic Star blocks. Quilting is just full of surprises. Ah, yes. Judging by these instructions, it looks to be relatively simple. Perfect. I was looking forward to a fast project, something we can finish before the holidays. Let's get started. Let's take another look at our inspiration. This Nordic Star is made up of reds and greens. Oh, isn't that just darling? Ugh. I can't see a thing in these glasses. Well, our inspiration pattern calls for 5 across and 4 down. That means we'll need 20 Nordic Star blocks. This free pattern here gives us the amount of fabric we'll need for 4 blocks. Well, golly, that's sure simple, isn't it? We could simply multiply the amount of fabric needed by 5. It appears we'll need some yardage as well, white and red and green. In the event I don't have enough reds and greens, I'm sure I can make a compromise. Perhaps pinks, blues, or whites. These have Christmas trees and gingerbread men. A good block always starts out with freshly ironed, crisp fabric. That's why I always iron mine first. The smell of freshly opened fabric much like a good book. You know, the holiday season always brings us back to the fundamentals. Warmth, togetherness, precise quarter-inch seams. I've got all my yardage ironed and ready to go. Here are my fat quarters, also ironed. Beautiful. In our reference photo, you can see here that we've got this pattern here. Now I'm not going to waste my time and try to figure out that mess. I'm going to improvise. Let's make a checkered pattern. Now that I've got all that math figured out, it's time to get cutting. I've decided to go with an off-white color. This one's more cream. Now, as you can see here, I've got stains on my fabric. Well, I wrote a letter to the manufacturer and I informed them of how this was mishandled in shipping. They ignored me. So, not wanting to cause a ruckus, I'll ignore them too. Let's cut around these splotches. You wouldn't even know I just ironed this. I've altered the math on this Nordic Star table runner. Free pattern. Link below. What I've done here is I've opted to ignore some of the instructions and multiply the rest by 5. Isn't math nifty? The Nordic Star block really is a classic. Timeless, really. I've now got all of my fabric cut into squares and rectangles. Here I've got 80 of each. I made a rough estimate when it came to my fabric strips. But isn't that the joy of quilting? Never quite sure what you're going to get? I ride by the seat of my pants. I look at inspiration, and I make wild guesses. Whether I'm right or wrong, I'm always right. If you'd remember, I made mention that I may not have enough greens and reds. I looked through my stash, and the colors just weren't matching quite right. So I went ahead and decided that my middle rows would be made up of this block and this block. I think they'll look quite cute together. Don't you? Now the next thing I'm going to show you is how to start putting your blocks together. As you know, I've got my free pattern here that I'm using as the main template. We're going to be making a lot of half-square triangles. Half-square triangles? Yes, half-square triangles. Stick around and I'll show you exactly how this square here and this square here becomes a half-square triangle. It's fun, it's riveting, and it's oh so creative. You won't want to miss this. Sewing our blocks together is quicker and more secure. I know many of you hail from a time when you used to hand stitch all of your blocks together. And not only that, there weren't nifty ways to make half-square triangles. Why? You had to cut out the templates, and then you had to sew them all together. Well, I'm here to tell you, we no longer have to cut out templates off the back of the cereal box anymore. With math, we can do magical things. Technology sure has come a long way. We're going to start by making 8 of each because that's what our free pattern tells us to do. Of course, we're going to need more than that, but we're going to start out this way first to be safe. We need to put together 8 of these, 8 of these, and 8 of these. Well, that's simple. We do that by simply taking our background square and then one of our colored squares, and we place them right sides together. Once they're right sides together, take our ruler. We place it from corner to corner. And we draw a big bold line connecting right down the center. Do you see that? Next, we simply sew a 1/4 inch line on either side of this line. My foot here is about a 1/4 inch, so I'll simply place that down right there, pull this thread over to the side, and begin stitching my merry way to the other side of the fabric square. Well, there. Wasn't that easy? Next, we'll simply take our shears and we'll cut down that first line we made. Whew. That sure was a lot of work. I may need to take a little break. And would you look at that? Like magic! We have a half-square triangle with only half the work. Golly! My grandmother often complains that making half-square triangles this quickly is sorcery. She also says that if Moses didn't need a sewing machine to divide the Red Sea, then neither does she. I know change can be hard, but we are an evolving species, learning new things. Why? Just a few years ago, we were dying because we didn't know enough to wash our hands. And now look at us, thriving. Embrace the change. Well, alrighty. Now, I've finished assembling all of my half-square triangles, and I've ironed them out as well. As you can see, I have many more squares that require transformation. However, because I've made a wild guess about the math here, I don't feel comfortable assembling everything all at once here. So what I've decided to do is to begin creating our Nordic Star blocks as I go. This does two things. This prevents boredom and it ignites adventure. This way, I am both assembling the blocks, feeling accomplished, and then continuing on. This gives me a better idea of where I am in the process. Your process may look different, and that's perfectly all right. Now, let's go ahead and begin assembling. As you can see here, I have 3 variations of the half-square triangle. I also have these 3 1/4 inch squares for the corners. If we look at this graph, we can see exactly how we are supposed to orientate them. Let's give it a whirl. Now, doesn't that look fantastic? The one thing we've got to remember here is we want our half-square triangles to be the same exact size as our fill-in squares, which is 3 1/4 inches. If you were to place this blank background square on top, you would see that it's not quite 3 1/4 inches. So it is prudent and practical that we cut all of these down before assembly. You may notice that this doesn't appear to fit, but of course not. Our seam allowances will shrink it all together, and then it will all fit. With that information in mind, I'll get sewing. I hope this information is helpful to you. As you can see, I finished all of my star blocks, and I've got them all here. What you may also notice is that I've got this checkered strip right along here. I've also got this green sashing here, which will go on top of the checker and below the checker. This is cut at 2 inches. The checkers you see here were created with 6 strips of each color, red and white. They are put together like so. One strip set has red in the middle with white on the outside, and our second strip set has white in the middle with red on the outside. Each strip is cut at 2 inches. I believe I can confidently say that it would take 6 strips of each color to create our entire width. I do still have some leftover checkered pieces here that I haven't put together. My plan here is to put together one row of the stars, and from there measure how long it is at the end, and that is how I will know how long these must be, as well as how long this must be. And there we are. Everything's attached. Fabulous. So in all, you will need 18 strips of red and 18 strips of white. And then you should be able to create 3 checkered sashing pieces to place in between. Next, I will begin cutting the strip lengths of this green. As you can see, I've attached them on the bias. Very likely I will need to cut more strips of this green, but we will get there when we get there. Beautiful, isn't it? It's wonderful to be inspired. It's cheap. It's affordable. A guessing game for sure. But I like adventure. Don't you? Now, as you can see here, I've taken it upon myself to do checkers, as I didn't want to trouble myself with the complicated way our inspiration looked. And as I mentioned multiple times before, I've used a series of 2-inch strips. I simply reverse engineered the math, starting off with 12-inch blocks and working my way up to the final, which is about 70 inches, give or take. Yes, friends, I thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope that you leave inspired today, as I leave inspired every day. Take care of yourselves and each other.